A post on X from Lou DiBello reads, and I quote, "Perhaps the worst career decision making for a star level kid ever. Horrible promoter, manager, corner judgment both. First, in allowing Tim to continue in the Fedora fight. And two, following that with a beast like this guy who brought no gate or name recognition to the fight. Hashtag boxing." End quote. And to that, I would have to say yes. I couldn't have agreed more with what Lou DiBello is saying here. Tim Tszyu's promoter, manager, and corner handled Tim's career horribly. They did a horrible job with this kid's career, who was on his way to being a world level class fighter. And now has to work his way back up from the bottom. Again, this is horrible. Terrible, man. I was sad seeing my boy Tszyu get beat up in the ring like that, yo. And so now it's kind of like, where does Tim Tszyu go from here? Well, if you want my opinion, and I'm guessing that you do because you're here, I say he goes back to Australia and he regroups. He gets some non-television type fights, some tune-ups to help him get his confidence back. Do I think that Tim Tszyu is through? Well, it all just depends on his mindset and how bad he really wants this. Me personally, I don't think Tim Tszyu is through. I'm not one of these fickle fans that as soon as a fighter loses, I'm that quick to throw him away. When I came onto the scene of this YouTube boxing community, I was on the Tim Tszyu bandwagon, so you better believe that I'm staying on it until the wheels fall off. But like I was saying, it's all about Tim's mindset and where his mindset is, where his headspace is at. An example of what I'm talking about is Anthony Joshua. He got beat by Andy Ruiz, but he didn't let that bother him too much. He got his rematch. He took his belts back after being beat in such brutal fashion. And then the next time that AJ loses was versus Alexander Usyk. And even though he got beat twice, that didn't let him get in the way of him once again being in contention for another world title. He worked his way back up. After being beat by the same guy twice, he got back to a world title. When he got there, he did get brutally beat down by Daniel Dubois, but that's neither here or there. That's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make here is that if he really wants to get back to being a contender for a world title, then it's more than possible. It's been done before. After being beaten brutally like he did versus Mortazaliev yesterday, it all just depends, again, on Tim Tszyu's mindset. But it is what it is, and it was what it was, man. I never understood Tim Tszyu's obsession with wanting to become a star here in the United States so much. And you can say that, well, it's because his dad, Costa Tszyu, became a star here. And to that I would say, unfortunately for Tim, those days are gone. The days of when the USA was the mecca of boxing are gone, and they don't seem to be coming back anytime soon. This is not your dad's era of boxing no more, Tim. I wish somebody would drill that into your thick-ass fucking head. You're a pay-per-view star in Australia. What's with the obsession with wanting to become a star here in the United States? There's nothing here when it comes to boxing. Boxing in the U.S., the boxing scene in the U.S. is right behind lacrosse and swimming. And I believe dart throwing might be ahead of boxing here in the U.S. There's nothing here. And you might be asking yourself, why am I saying all of this? What does Tim Tszyu fighting in the U.S. have to do with the result of yesterday's fight? Well, it has everything to do with last night's fight. Let me explain. This has all been a domino effect. Tim Tszyu's career, that is. It's just, Tim Tszyu's been taking L after L since coming here to the U.S. and signing with PBC. If Tim Tszyu would have fought Sebastian Fundora in Australia instead of the U.S., right? Let's just take this example. Let's run with it. Hypothetically, if the fight played out exactly the same in Australia as it did here in the United States, and when I say exactly the same, I mean exactly the same. Same bloody ass mess. The deep cut that Tim Tszyu suffered on his forehead. Everything down to a T, right? Had happened the same way, except it happened in Australia. Well, at least Tim Tszyu would have gotten the decision win. And why do I say that? Well, it's because in Australia, the fix would have been in for Tim Tszyu. And for all you guys saying, well, dog boxing, that's not right. That's cheating. That's corrupt. To you guys, I would say, fuck that. Look at the way the PBC did Tim Tszyu. Originally, Tim Tszyu signed a deal with the PBC to unify titles between him and Jermell Charlo. But guess what? PBC, just doing PBC type shit, never gave Tim Tszyu the Jermell Charlo fight. Instead, they gave him everybody else except the guy he wanted, Terrell Gausha, Tony Harris. And then they promised him a Keith Thurman fight, who is a 5'8" orthodox boxer. But with 10 days before the fight, they replaced Keith Thurman with a Sebastian Fundora, a 6'6" southpaw that fights the exact opposite style that Tim Tszyu was practicing and sparring for. The first sign that Tim Tszyu should have peeped out and should have realized that was sketch was when the PBC didn't keep their word on the Jermell Charlo fight. That's where he should have said, you know what, fuck these people, I'm going home. And then the second sign should have been where they promised him Keith Thurman, but instead they bamboozled him into a Sebastian Fundora fight. What's that saying? Fool me one time, shame on you. Fool me two times, shame on me. If Tim Tszyu would have fought Fundora in Australia, like I said, the fix would have been in. And Tim Tszyu would have kept all his belts, right? He would have kept all his straps. And he could have gone straight into a big money fight for unification versus Bud Crawford. But instead, he fights Sebastian Fundora, an American, on American soil. He gets all his belts took, and now he needs to get a belt all over again. And that's how we ended up here. You see what I mean now? That Tim Tszyu's career has been a trickle effect or domino effect, whichever way you fancy it. If Tim Tszyu would have never agreed to a Keith Thurman fight, he would have never fought Fundora. If he would have never fought Fundora, then he would have never had to fight Bakram Murtazaliev. And you know what? If it's one of Tim Tszyu's dreams to become a superstar here in the United States, then who the fuck am I to say no, Tim? You know, so fuck it then. I would say, do your thing, Tim. But I would say sign with Top Rank. This would have never happened if Tim Tszyu just simply signed with Bob Arum and Top Rank. Fail with Al. That's the PBC's motto. Am I blaming this on Al Heyman and the PBC? No. No, not at all. I'm blaming this on Tim Tszyu for doing business with the PBC. When you already have no limit, which is basically yours out of Australia. You have Frank Warren in Queensberry in the UK. You have Bob Arum and Top Rank here in the US. Eddie Hearn and Matchroom also operate right out of the United States. You had all these better options, but instead you chose the PBC, the biggest dirtbags in the sport. But guys, girls, that's all I got for this one. Let me know what y'all think down in the comment section. And you already know this has been your boy O Dog Boxing, and I'm out. This